Hi, everybody. I really just want to be the gay cowboy, honestly. So, guys, imagine you're at your high school reunion, and it's like, hey, what's Bob been up to? And it's, 15 years ago. Well, he's a partner at a law firm. Everyone's like, oh, that's really admirable. And the guy, of course, is like, I hate my life, right? He's working, 20-hour days. But imagine a high school reunion right now, and it's like, what's Bob up to? Well, he just started an artisanal bakery. And everyone's like, that's so freaking awesome. And he's like, oh, yeah, I think I'm going to do yoga tomorrow, right? And this is a real transition. And it's literally happened just in the last 15 years. And it's happening in a lot of different categories. Hang on. I'm trying to figure out this little button here. It's a little delay. There we go. Whoa. Can we go backwards? I guess not. But anyway, the last slide. Oh. Technology. So one thing that's happened is the cost of stuff has gone down. And this isn't just because of China, it's because of technology. Production costs for pretty much everything have gone down, and it's going to keep going, with 3D printing, medical scanning. And this is especially if you avoid branding. If you don't fall into the trap of digital advertising, you're not really going to have to spend that much money. And it's kind of interesting because this stuff has happened in a lot of different categories, and the need for stuff has gone down. And we've all noticed this from the sharing economy. If I need a car or a drill, or I can even rent fancy clothes, and then there's on-demand services that just bring it all to you immediately, like food and everything. So the need to have like a fancy kitchen, to have a fancy car, all this stuff is kind of dissipated, and it's dissipating, especially with the millennial population. And really, people just want to be happy. You look at what people want most when you do these surveys. It's like, a flexible schedule, fulfilling work, stuff that you actually like to do. Sadly, down south, it's access to healthcare, although we're fixing that. So kudos to Canada, bravo. C'est magnifique ici. And then, quality and not quantity is really a big theme nowadays, and experiences and not stuff. You see people talking about, if you spend your money on a car, you're immediately unhappy afterwards. And then if you spend your money on a great trip to Bali or whatever, you remember it. And, this is something that's really interesting because when all of this really started back with the Industrial Revolution, this famous economist Keynes was like, oh my God, technology is so great and we're manufacturing stuff so well that pretty soon everyone's only going to have to work 15 hours a week. But that's not what happened. We're still stuck in pretty much the same mechanisms that were invented in like 1910 and 1920. And if you really step back, things are really going back to a simpler life. Because in 1900, you had simple production. Then in 2000, we're the height of the industrial age. But now we're back to simplified production. Artisanal bakeries, Etsy, and what have you. And this is like a real trend. And we're going to step through a few of these. I'm going to push hard. I'm going to push harder. So you look at goods. 100 years ago, anything you wanted to buy was handmade. 15 years ago, anything you wanted, you'd get from Amazon. Now, most of the cool stuff is handmade. You look at coffee. 100 years ago, you wanted a cup of coffee. Somebody was roasting the beans right there. Then we went to mass production, and I just had a fantastic cup of coffee around the corner from our hotel. It was amazing. In San Francisco, we have one called Blue Bottle. But this is even like barbers. You have the hipster barber shops now, right? It's like this trend is just really happening all over the place. And then you look at the cities themselves. In the old days, everybody knew their neighbors. They lived in villages and small towns, or if they were in a big city, there was like an urban neighborhood where everybody knew each other. And we've gone into these mass anonymous cities, and there's actually this trend back to like villages and urban neighborhoods where everybody knows each other, and sites like Nextdoor that are facilitating those. And then you also go back 100 years, and if I wanted to get somewhere, people hitchhiked a lot back then, right? This is where the thumb came from. And sometimes you'd say, oh, I'll pitch in on the gas and whatever, and then everybody's like, I got to have my own car. And now it's like, okay, I want to hitch a ride and pay again. It's just a lot easier with Uber and Lyft. And same with commuting. I've been using this thing in San Francisco called Chariot. And honestly, it's just like people do it like when I was in Manila. This is how people commute, right? You get on a little jeepney, and they take you somewhere cheap. And so, but this is actually how it worked, in our society a long time ago. There was like private companies that would get you from point A to point B on a regular basis. Then it went to mass transit, which maybe in Canada it's a little better. In the US, it's just an abject disaster. And now we're going back to this. And same with hotels. 100 years ago, it was very common that people would rent out a room in their house. And then everybody went to hotels, and now we're back to renting a room in a house. It's just a little more predictable. And even with spirituality, 100 years ago, everybody went to church. It was like the thing you did on Sunday. That's why people didn't work on Sunday. And then we really went through massive materialism lately, and now people are doing things like yoga, going on retreats. Meditation is a big thing. And this is just about finding, the church within you. And there's sites like Yoga Glow that distribute this stuff. And then also for work. Back in the day, everyone was an independent craftsperson, essentially, right? You didn't really work for someone. You did something, and people paid you for that product. And we all went to being employees, just like the Ford factory from then on. And now people are kind of going back to being independent contractors, and it's okay. You work in the coffee shop, and there's sites like Upwork that facilitate that. And then you also look at food. Look, I traveled to Vietnam a few years ago, and I'll never forget, I went to, a market. So their equivalent of a supermarket in Hanoi looked just like the farmer's market, although a little more disheveled, that we have in my hometown in San Francisco. And I was like, it's really funny. We are literally going back to this, And so no more factory farming. No more massive stores where you don't know where your food came from. No more GMOs. And there's sites that'll even mail you this stuff. So a lot of this stuff is really accelerated. And then you also look at entertainment. Back in the day, you were reading a book by candlelight, or there was a local band, and we went to like massive pop stars and TV stars and watching what people do. But now YouTube stars are incredibly famous, and local bands. So in a lot of ways, we were going back, and there's companies like Maker Studios. They exited for, I think, $500 million. So there are huge markets in each of these categories. And it's really funny because it's also happening in schooling. So my child just turned 20, actually, today. I just sent him a text. But he went to some small schools, but also some big schools. And really, you go back in the day, and a lot of education was self-taught. People did not sit in classrooms. They did not have Common Core. When you took a biology class, they took you out to the woods and pointed out stuff. And we've really gone into factory schooling, and it's really interesting because there's a new company out of the Bay Area called Alt School, which is kind of bringing back the small classroom. And there's a lot of opportunities for online learning, and people are kind of doing apprenticeships again. Like if you look at like a hack reactor, where people can go and learn how to code, that is essentially an apprenticeship. And it's kind of funny because it's definitely happening with restaurants, right? We went from small family restaurants. You still go out to the suburbs, and everything's a McDonald's or a Red Robin or what have you. And I've noticed them just right outside here. Food carts are like this massive phenomena, right? It used to be to start a restaurant, it was literally a disaster, right? The city would have you do all these health codes and inspections, and the fire extinguisher has to be this high, and it became really, really complicated. And that's why franchises could do it. They had the money to do it. But now pretty much anybody can do a food cart. I think I have to point this way. So anyway, look. Clearly, this might sound really foreign to you, and definitely the hipsters, are on the forefront of this, right? But the idea is that this technology acceleration is going to make this possible for everybody, not just, somebody who decides to opt out and grow a beard and wear, I don't know, is that plaid? I don't know what that is. And so the idea is the village is actually within you, and it's wherever you are, you can create a village. There are actually villages everywhere now. You just have to look for them. You can lower your spend, do what you love. There's a lot of people doing it now, and I think this is a magnificent future. And that's the end of the lightning talk. Thank you. Enjoy your lunch.